Lesson Day. This movie is a Christian movie in disguise. Oops, I told you it's a spoiler alert. Ugh. The Hammer, originally called Heart Baby. See it on Amazon Prime. I was told by agents and PR people in Hollywood in the very beginning to remove God from it, take the brotherhood story out, and just focus on the love story. Okay, spoiler alert. This movie is a true story about a prison boxer who was offered freedom to fight in the 1984 Olympics, and he said no. And the reason he said no is the movie. Conservative men, your red state dudes that you guys don't like, they love this movie. They go bananas for this movie. And then they watch it, and then their whole life changes, and they have a 180, and their eyes are open, and they're actually better humans after this movie. It's amazing. But this film, perhaps because of that reason, has been stopped by the Hollywood process every single step along the way. I'll just get right into the film festivals. No, not one of them. Only obscure, smaller festivals we got into, and we won all of them. But the bigger ones, it wasn't not accepted at all. Why? Couple reasons. The biggest agent at the biggest agency called me up on my phone, and he was like, "Holy shit, this is the best movie I've seen in 10 years. I wish that I could help you." "Well, sir, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And why can't you help me?" He literally said, "Because you're female and you're too old." What? Okay. A lot of men don't have a problem with that at all. Anywho, what would you do if I was a dude and younger? And he goes, "Oh, I'd take you to the Oscars." What? You know the number one problem I've had with this film are actors and actors' agents and Screen Actors Guild. I am still 7 years into paperwork with the Screen Actors Guild, who keeps the money halted. Everything about this movie in relation to Hollywood has a roadblock in front of it for years. And it's now, I find it sort of funny in a strange way. So I'm just gonna tell you some stories. The usual route for an independent film is that you go to film festivals, and then you get into the public eye, and then they find you, and then they love you, and then it's awesome, right? So go find my movie. We submitted and paid for all of these film festival submissions. We got into the ones that are smaller. We did not get into any of the big ones, not one, even though I won many of them with other movies, right? I didn't get it with this movie. One of the programmers, I'm not gonna give them away, from one of the huge festivals. I love that movie so much. It's my favorite movie that we saw. I was like, "Well, why didn't you program it?" Because the trans character died. Huh? I was not expecting that. So there is a trans character in this film, and she does pass away, and it's a true story. And they said we had a meeting. Okay, what? They had a meeting with all the programmers about the film, because they have a meeting about which ones they're going to use together, which ones they're going to support, because of the agents. Yeah. So agents control the film festivals. I don't know if you knew that. They got on the boards around 2004. So now the film festivals are very much controlled by the agencies in Hollywood. Did you know that? And then they keep what you see as a public under control. Did you know that? You're welcome. So the programmers of the festivals have a meeting. What? I didn't know y'all did it. And they decide that they're not going to program this in any of them. Because the trans character dies. It is a dang true story about a prison boxer, right? The champion of the world, undefeated to this day. So he technically is the champion of the world. And he turned down the Olympics, because we all know he would have won. He also turned down freedom from prison because he was in love with this trans woman. Okay? And he wanted to protect her. That is why he turned down the Olympics. I get goosebumps every single time. I mean, you're like, what? And the reason the men love this, especially if you don't tell them that, because they're like, I ain't watching no training, maybe. That's the guy. But when they see it, when they see the movie, they're like, I love her. I'd have done the same thing. And on top of everything, she was a born-again Christian. So we have a trans woman who was a born-again Christian who opened the minds of all these men in prison, and they don't want to program this movie because she died? I'm going to say it's something different. I'm going to say you're having an attack on God. That's what I'm going to say. Just a theory, working theory. You tell me what you think. See this movie on wherever you can find it, on Amazon Prime is where I might get 10 cents, but I probably will never get money because SAG holds it up. There's a whole other video. All this time and years of working on this and dedicating my life to these men and over 10 years of my time, I will say that God wins, and I made this movie because of God, and it continues, I'm gonna cry, and it continues because of God. So I ask you, what do you think? Which do you think is more important? Do you think it's more important to tell the story that a straight man, champion of the world, boxer, turned down freedom because he was in love with a trans woman? He was not gay. He was in love with a woman, which is a whole other discussion for trans people, right? And trans people seen this movie and seen who's played it, and they're like, oh my God, I love it. That's just precious. I love this movie. But it has been stopped and halted every single step of the way because of God. Things you don't know until you know. And then when you know, you're like, oh, hell no. So I ask you, what in the God's hell name are you gonna do about it? I don't know. Pray.